Hello everyone and welcome to Season 6, Episode 7 of Pro Wrestling's Top 50. I'm your host Travis McNeil, and today we continue our countdown of the top 50 matches of 2021 with match number 44 on our list, which is the 30-minute Iron Man match between Chris Brookes and Lulu Pencil from the Gatoh Move ChocoPro Live 137 event held on July the 22nd of 2021. This match is by far the biggest surprise to me of 2021. If you are unfamiliar with Gatoh Move, it is Emi Sakura's promotion that she runs, where, listen, I don't want to be disrespectful. I was going to call it like apartment wrestling, and that's, not the term for it. But it's basically like this no-ring wrestling on like just a gym mat inside this, little apartment in, Japan that they run out of. It's super weird. I will fully state that it is not for me. I generally, I'm not big on the whole no ring craze that, has really picked up over the past couple of years. I'm not a big comedy wrestling person, nothing against, people that love that style, but really not for me. And when the pandemic first started, Gatoh Move was running regularly. So when there was really no, outside of like the weird, early like no crowd Raw episodes and stuff, there really wasn't a lot of wrestling going on. So on Cage Match, if you're familiar with the cagematch.net website, where wrestling fans go on and rank, matches and performers and things like that, these Gatoh Move, shows were kind of the most prominently reviewed, shows and matches at the time. And, they have a very loyal fan base that would, go on and really critique the matches and, score them favorably. So at the start of the pandemic, I checked out Gatoh Move for the first time and didn't understand it, realized it wasn't for me. I gave it a couple tries with a few of, their highly rated matches, and I just checked out on it. So a little over a year later, here we are, this Iron Man match starts getting buzz. I know Chris Brookes from, the UK and the European indie scene. He had went, over to Japan. He's been living there full time, primarily wrestling for DDT. So, I know him and I'm a fan of him. I had no idea who Lulu Pencil was, but again, I thought, okay, here we have another Gatoh Move match. It's going to be a weird comedy match. It's not going to be for me. But then, outside of the 3 or 4 reviews that these matches normally get on Cage Match, more reviews started to come in, and more reviews started to come in, and more reviews started to come in. And, this match was still getting these high ratings. It was getting these 8s and these 9s. And I thought, okay, I'm going to give it the old college try. I'm going to invest 30 minutes of my time into this match. And I did not expect to like it whatsoever. I went into it with a preconceived notion that after 30 minutes, I was going to think, why did I just waste my time watching that match? And please don't do that. That is a horrible way to go in to watching wrestling. Watch the stuff that you think you are going to enjoy. Pro wrestling should, to borrow a phrase from Marie Kondo, it should spark that joy in you, right? Don't hate watch things. We see that so often on Twitter and on social media where, people just, they watch this stuff that they clearly don't like. And, there are so many better uses of your time. But, I can only preach so much because, the pot's calling the kettle black, right, with this one, where, I went into this expecting to hate it. This match blew me away. The performances of both of these wrestlers in this match are so good. And the thing with wrestling is, we all watch it for a variety of reasons, but for me, the wrestling that always connects the most with me is the matches where, I feel a connection to the performers. And it's funny because all of the wrestling that I grew up on, the late 80s, early 90s wrestling, there were a lot of limited performers, but some of that wrestling holds up better for me now than, a lot of stuff from the early indie boom or, a lot of the hyped matches, over the past couple of years. And, weird comparison, but like, I can watch a Seth Rollins match that, was a million times better than a Hogan match from 1990. But, you know, as soon as that Seth Rollins match is done, I'm going to forget about it because I see them week after week after week. But, you know, these Hogan matches that are, you know, they have this hot crowd and this connection and this drama to it. Those are the matches that stick with me. And those are the matches that watching now I find that sparking of joy out of. So this is a match where, you know, Lulu Pencil is a very limited pro wrestler. She's relatively inexperienced as far as I know. She's very, very petite, you know, and, you know, maybe is of limited skill. But that doesn't matter in a match like this. What matters is her ability to convey emotion. And, you know, as someone watching this match through YouTube, to find that connection to it and that investment in it, that's the best pro wrestling that there is. So I watched this match. I was blown away by it. And, you know, I really didn't know how it would hold up. So I mentioned I did, you know, a ridiculous amount. I watched like 104, 106 or something like that matches, you know, that I thought were my favorite of the year to try to whittle down this top 50 list that you're watching. And this was one where I loved it at the time. I didn't know how it would hold up. It, you know, maybe not quite to the level of that initial, you know, viewing that I had of it. But I still loved it. I still found so much enjoyment in it. And it's funny because, you know, a lot of times these matches that kind of come out of nowhere, they carry, you know, this shock value to it that you're not expecting to get what you get out of it. You're not expecting something great. And then you watch them back and they're not as special as you originally thought. And you know what? This happens to a handful of matches every single year for me. And doing these lists, you know, has really made me realize that, where I'm like, oh yeah, I love that match. And then I watch it back and it was nothing special. But this one delivered. 2021 too, maybe I'm off base with this, but I feel like it was kind of the year of the Iron Man match. I feel like there were so many just all over the place. You know, I guess, you know, for better or worse, wrestling was kind of back in 2021, you know, still during the pandemic. But, you know, that we were starting to get fans back and things like that. And wrestlers, you know, really wanted to show their stuff with these long form matches. And I've talked about Iron Man matches before. I've reviewed them before on this show. And, you know, I've mentioned countless times I prefer the 30-minute format to the 60-minute format, but I saw 30-minute Iron Man matches. I saw 60-minute Iron Man matches. I saw a 2-hour Iron Man match, you know, in 2021. So they were all over the place. You know, maybe this isn't going to be the only Iron Man match we see on this list. I don't know. Stay tuned. But this one was one of the most memorable matches overall of 2021 to me. You know, there was a story going to this match that, you know, truthfully, I really had no basis of knowledge for. You know, the ChocoPro commentary, truthfully, I apologize. I don't know the name of the person that is their commentary person, but he does a great job, you know, with really, you know, explaining the stories. And, you know, I understood that these two had been feuding and Chris Brookes had been a bully. And you know, I understood that Lulu Pencil had never scored you know, a pinfall or submission victory in her entire wrestling career up to this point. So, you know, they very easily established that story to me, and we know there's 30 minutes, and basically this match is going to be a playtime for Chris Brookes, where, you know, and this is going to sound terrible, but where he can enforce his will, you know, upon Lulu Pencil, upon his opponent. And in a way, this match reminds me a little bit of playing a video game. And we hear these video game comparisons all the time in pro wrestling, you know, with the, like, Will Ospreay and all of these wrestlers, where it's, you know, a lot of the old time vets, you know, your Rip Rogers and, you know, all of these old schmucks, you know, are so critical of that style. But, you know, this match feels like a video game, but in a completely different way. You know, if you've ever purchased a wrestling video game, I don't know about you, but for me, you know, one of the first matches I always do is I'll put like a 60-minute Iron Man match on, because that way I know the match is going to go a long time. There can't be a weird fluke because I forget how to kick out, or I, you know, can't figure out the submission system or whatever. But it gives me a lot of time to play and, you know, really get adapted to the system and check it out and try different moves and you know, stuff like that, and really scope out the environment of the ring. And in those matches, you know, you're just hitting every single move in the book and you're getting countless falls, and sometimes you're pulling your opponent up to do something else and all of this stuff. And that's really how it felt like Chris Brookes, who's, you know, a younger guy, he's, you know, from that video game generation, took this match. So I found that really cool and unique, and I can't remember ever having seen a wrestling match, you know, kind of embed a story like that into it. Obviously, there's a huge size difference here. Chris Brookes is a very tall guy. Lulu Pencil is a very, like I said, petite woman. And, you know, we start with a lockup, and Chris Brookes, he's so smug and arrogant and later really aggressive in this match. And he comes across as such a scumbag throughout the course of the match that it really puts you, you know, put your hope into Lulu Pencil. And to her credit, she does such a good job as this undersized, scrappy underdog, giving her all to try to get her first, you know, fall that she can win in a pro wrestling match. But Brookes is great. You know, he tosses her aside on the opening lockup. You know, he grabs like just a simple armbar and forces her to use the ropes, which is really just the edge of the mat in Gatoh move. And, you know, Lulu Pencil kind of gets a fluke little trip and like grabs a submission, and Brookes, you know, kind of grabs the ropes, but almost, you know, kind of like mockingly to do it, right? He's not in any real imminent danger in the match. And like I said, you know, he's such a dirty person in this match, where, you know, they'll like fight over a knuckle lock, and Brookes, you know, obviously he's got the height and power advantage. He'll muscle her down, and as, you know, Lulu tries to bridge out, you know, he's like slapping her in the stomach. You know, this kind of fires Lulu up, who has this grudge against Chris Brookes, and she brings two chairs in and wants like a necro butcher style, you know, bar fight, and she's great in this match too. This match is very vocal, right? It's very, you know, these guys are, you know, both of them are very verbal, you know, with their you know, their trash talk to each other and everything like that, and that really works in, you know, these kind of no crowd environments like this match. So, you know, she sits down in the chair and she's like, hit me first to Chris Brookes. And it's amazing. And it, you know, it makes her seem like a badass who's not going to back down. But Chris Brookes, again, he's just this dirty, nasty heel, and he just boots her right out of the chair. Hits like a brutal dragon screw leg whip. They do a little bit of comedy here. It was the low point of the match for me, but it was quick and it was fine, where, you know, Brookes gets distracted because there's all of the other, you know, ChocoPro live, you know, roster around ringside, so he kind of gets distracted with them, and she slips like an ice pack down his pants or whatever. But that causes him to get angry, and he gorilla presses her up into the ceiling, you know, ends up putting her down. They really use the size difference here, where, you know, she tries to like use a schoolboy and can't take him over. So, you know, Lulu gets frustrated that she's struggling so much against Brookes and he's not taking her seriously. So she brings a table into the match and kind of like leans it up against a window. And Chris Brookes just destroys her with this brutal suplex into this table. And it's enough for a 3 count in the first fall in this match. You know, you expect, you know, if you're familiar with Gatoh move, like I said, you expect this comedy, there's a light match. This match is brutal. Like, they really do a lot of nasty stuff in it. Chris Brookes, again, he's so ruthless. And the ChocoPro environment, it's very, you know, pro Lulu Pencil, and there's all of these signs up, you know, from fans and people that have, you know, written their support. So Lulu Pencil's gimmick, if you don't know, she's like a freelance writer. That's the pencil in her name. So, you know, there's all these like handwritten, you know, letters that fans have sent to her, you know, wanting to support her in her, you know, crusade to get his first victory. And Chris Brookes is, you know, ripping him off the wall and holding her there to force her to watch it. And there's like a Lulu Pencil flag, and he, you know, rips that off and like wraps her up in it, and then just starts taking all of the Gatoh move roster and starts body slamming them on top of Lulu Pencil, who can't move because she's wrapped up in her own flag. And, you know, that's enough for another fall because she literally can't kick out, you know, in the straitjacket of her flag. And then he throws the flag out the window and steps on her. Like, he's just so unlikable in this match, and it's so good. He bends her every which way from Sunday, you know, thinking that he's Zack Sabre Jr. He chokes her with the flagpole. Lulu kind of gets these small openings throughout the match. Hits him in the groin with the flagpole and grabs a guillotine choke, but Brookes runs her into the wall, and all of these little openings she gets, she can't really do too much with it because of the size difference. There's a point where Chris Brookes grabs like a stack of pencils and just starts breaking pencils in front of her. So she grabs a pencil and he's like, "You can't break that, you're skinny," and she breaks the pencil and stabs it into Chris Brooks's leg. It was amazing. It's such a good visual and such a good gag in this match. From there, she kind of gets like these foot stomps, and they bring in this weird, like, giant pencil thing where, Brookes is trying to open that, and she kicks it into his face, and he gets, powder in his face, and they go outside through the window, and there's this, funny spot where they're trying to be like quiet because they're on this like residential street and they don't want to draw too much attention to the Gatoh move building, I guess. But Lulu like reverses a whip to Chris Brookes into like these shutters, and it's so loud and everybody's freaking out that it's gonna startle the neighborhood. So there's some comedy in this match that's not intentional, that kind of works and adds to the atmosphere. Back in the ring, Lulu starts going to Chris Brooks's offense, which was, really cool. She can't take him down with something, so she grabs his nose and gives him, the bop on the nose, which is a Chris Brooks staple. And she, tries the octopus hold, which is Chris Brooks, one of his signature moves. Lulu ends up, putting him under the mat, kind of getting revenge, for the whole flag thing, and jumps out of a window with the pencil splash, which is like her finishing move. But she can't get the fall because you can't see Chris Brooks' shoulders because he's under the mat. So she gets, all these like near falls, but in very creative ways, just putting this, story and this drama on, will she end up getting a fall before the 30 minutes are up? There's a great visual of Chris Brooks like coming out of, from underneath the mat, like the swamp thing coming out, in a Universal monster movie. It's all just, it's such a cool match, and it's so different, and there's all these neat little things that, really, add to the experience that you're getting all together. Lulu gets like a DDT on the floor. It's a wooden floor. It's brutal. But she can't get the fall because she's not on the mat. So she drags Brookes onto the mat. And, by the time she does that, because he's so big, she only gets a 2 count. So another really good near fall. She tries the pencil splash out the window again and hits knees. And Brookes hits like this crazy flying ace crusher, like diving over the referee, and that's enough to put her away to go up 3-0 for another fall. There's a really great moment where Lulu uses like a La Magistral cradle, only gets 2, and like transitions it into like a very Zack Sabre-esque, Zack Sabre Jr.-esque submission like Brookes had been doing earlier. And something that I loved, Chris Brookes had to get to the ropes, but this time not like early in the match where it was almost kind of mocking that he had to use the ropes. Like he legitimately had to grab those ropes to prevent tapping out. So it was this great callback. All of this excellent build, is she gonna get this fall? Brookes, as we come into the time limit of the match, he slaps her, and Lulu fires up and just slaps the hell out of him. Starts hitting all of these chain roll-ups to get 2 after 2 after 2 after 2. And Chris Brookes, he's had enough, and he blasts her with the John Woo drop kick. And as she falls back, the back of her head, bumps off of the mat and hits the wooden floor, and it's so loud, and she screams, and it's, it's upsetting to watch. But again, it just adds to this package of this poor young woman, fighting for her life. And from there, Chris Brookes, he could have left it. There's maybe 30 seconds left in the match. She just hit her head. She could be concussed, and because he's so dirty, he decides he's going to drop her on her head, and he goes for, the praying mantis bomb, the Tiger Driver 98, and she's able to swing out of it into this beautiful folding press, and it's just enough to keep Chris Brooks' shoulders down for the 3 count, and Lulu Pencil scores her first fall ever in pro wrestling right before the 30-minute time limit expires. And even though this woman lost, you would think she won the WrestleMania main event. It's just an incredible moment that, if you're a Gatoh move fan and you've experienced a story, this had to have been so fulfilling for you. But even just for me, watching this as a one-off match, through the story of the match, they made me that invested into it. You know, and it would have been ridiculous for her to, you know, score a fall over Chris Brookes in a one-on-one match because of the size disparity. But, you know, they built up this story of her never quitting and never saying die. And ultimately, Chris Brookes is, you know, aggression and disrespect being his downfall to give this woman, you know, her moment in the sun and the win. And it was so excellent. The post-match is so beautiful. There's so much emotion. Lulu is, you know, crying, and her and Brookes embrace, you know, finally burying the hatchet to put the feud away, and he states that he's proud of her. And Emi Sakura, who runs the promotion, she's wearing a Lulu pencil shirt, and she's crying for her student, and it is just everything that is wonderful about professional wrestling. I love this match. I know I've talked about it, you know, almost the length of the match, I'm sure, at this point, but it is phenomenal. You know, broaden your horizons. If this is something that would never be on your radar, give it a shot. Maybe you won't like it, but it is worth the try. You know, I want to, with this program, you know, educate to, you know, the areas of pro wrestling that maybe you haven't experienced, or, you know, if you're a Lapsed fan, you haven't experienced for a while. I want you to enjoy pro wrestling like I enjoy pro wrestling, and this is a match that could possibly do it for you. And there's no excuse. Gatoh move, ChocoPro Live. It is available for free on YouTube. I will link this match on my Twitter page. You can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at Wrestling50. Subscribe to the channel here on YouTube so that you never miss a video. And please join me again tomorrow as we continue to count down Pro Wrestling's Top 50.